Welcome to the IT Asset Management Professional Introduction. My name is Tim LaFleur. I'll be your instructor. Let's get started. Today in this module, we're going to talk about what the International Association of IT Asset Managers is, both as a membership organization as well as a best practice holder. We're going to talk about the 12 key process areas that are involved in the Certified Mobile Asset Management course. All IT asset management programs have 12 key process areas that interplay off of each other, and we'll discuss how that works as a general rule, as well as how it interacts with mobility and your overall IT asset management program. We'll also talk about IT asset management as a profession. This is a profession, and we're trying to further it by having certified and qualified individuals in it. So we'll spend some time talking about how you can become a better professional through this course and other certifications offered by ITAM, as well as things you can do within the profession. Lastly, we'll have some exercises regarding communication styles. So much of the success of any type of program, whether it be an IT asset management program or any program in general, revolves around the idea of communication and making sure that we're communicating effectively. So the International Association of IT Asset Managers, we focus on life cycle of IT, and we focus on how we manage our IT assets. Not in the vertical sense as just an IT department, but from a horizontal perspective, understanding that assets will exist from individuals and will be used by individuals not only in IT, but in finance, in operations, any organization within, any department within your organization. We also take this from a cradle-to-grave perspective. We don't worry about solely the use of these IT assets when they're in service, but we worry about it from before we get it until they completely leave our organization. We'll talk about the different membership types that ITAM has, and there are several. There's the individual member type, which is your standalone practitioner. There's the corporate member type, where an organization can sign up to have a membership and then have as many of their people go through the classes and the certifications under that membership type. We'll also talk about provider member, which includes service providers, vendors, organizations who are wanting to do training for a profession and for a job in a business. And what are some of the roles within the ITAM department? They can range anywhere from analysts to managers to CIOs, directors, anyone in between, as well as specific IT asset managers, including software, hardware, mobile, in case of this class. So what is ITAM's mission? We want to be the authority on the subject. We spent the last 10 years building up the only 5 certifications that are recognized worldwide. And we want to do this and educate the world on how IT asset management works, as well as allow the people who go through our classes and our members a pathway for increased knowledge to increase their growth within the profession. So what are some of the professional certifications that ITAM offers? First, we offer the Certified Software Asset Management course. This is one of our beginning courses that talks about how do you manage the software within your organization, both from a negotiation and acquisition standpoint, again, all the way through dispositioning of the software. We have a course on hardware. Same idea, we talk about how do you introduce hardware into your environment, how do you track it, and then how do you dispose of it. We have a course that's dedicated to program. If you're an organization who's looking to start an IT asset management program but don't know where to start, the Certified IT Asset Manager program is what you're looking for. Not only is this good for companies that are looking to start an IT asset management program, but also companies that have a mature program that are looking to tune up a few areas of their program. We have this course, the Certified Mobile Asset Management course. This course is going to lay out the foundation of mobility, what it is, how it works, and how it affects your IT asset management program. Because it does have some distinct differences from what you might be used to if you're familiar with software or hardware asset management. And then lastly, our disposition class. What happens at the end of life? What happens when you decommission an IT asset, whether it be hardware or software? How do you make sure that you're disposing of it correctly? We also have information products. This is where, as an organization, we want to make sure that you're staying current with information. We have our ITAC magazine. This is a magazine that's solely dedicated to IT asset management. We invite practitioners, provider members, ITAM employees to contribute to this magazine, all with the idea of increasing the learning and increasing the profession. We have web events. We have hosted webinars and user groups monthly, so that if you're a practitioner within the IT asset management world and you're looking to get continuing education credits or just learn what's going on and what some of the new trends are, we have these opportunities available to you. We have a member services team that will provide you with weekly news updates. You can subscribe to a newsletter, and you can have information about the industry, about ITAM, about what our provider members are doing, sent right to your email. We've got gray and white papers that will focus on a specific topic within the IT asset management world, so that you can make sure your knowledge is staying current and you're providing the best services to your organization. We have our monthly member digest, which are short little articles that will talk about varying things from anything that's trending within mobility or disposition, all aimed with keeping you up to date and current. And we have our International Members User Group. This is an online forum where we have people come in from around the world to discuss specific problems or processes that they're having within their organization. We also have members speak about various topics, again, all aimed with making you a better professional. So in addition, what are some other services and resources we offer? We offer the 5 certification courses, which we've already outlined, anywhere from software to hardware to our IT asset manager, to the CMAM course, which is the one that we're taking now, as well as the disposition. And we also have our annual conference and exposition. This is a week long of straight learning and pure learning for the end users to come in and hear other end users give case studies or best practice tips, or come here with the latest trend is in a specific area of IT asset management. We've got vendors and publishers coming in and talking about what's going on in the industry. So we encourage everyone to take part in these different educational opportunities for you, because at the end of the day, we want to drive the profession forward. So the CMAM certification course, all of ITAM courses focus on these 12 areas that are on your screen right now. And they range anywhere from policy management. How do you create a policy within your organization? Jumping to communication and education. If you have a policy, how do you communicate it and make sure that your end users are educated on what the topics are and why they need to follow them? We'll talk about financial management, disposal, and tools. I'm not going to go over every one of these blocks right now, but trust me, we'll get into all areas of this within this course and how these should operate within an IT asset management program, as well as getting very specific as to how mobility affects each one of these areas within an organization. So we also have a value system for the IT asset management profession. As with any profession, we want to make sure that the people who are in it and executing the profession are following a set of guidelines, so that when management looks at starting an IT asset management program, they know what to expect out of the professionals within their organization. We'll promote the IT asset manager job as a profession. Not only are we going to talk about what the code of ethics are, we'll talk about how an individual might promote themselves to executive leadership. Like anything else, like any other discipline, we're no different in that we have to make sure that we have executive leadership buy-in. And so how do you promote yourself? How do you advocate for yourself? We'll talk about some ways to do that. We'll also recognize that IT influences everything within an organization. I mentioned earlier that ITAM and IT asset management is not vertical. It doesn't just stay within an IT department, but it spreads out within a whole organization, from finance to HR to legal and every other aspect of a company. Because at the end of the day, IT is being used by everyone within the organization. So we want to make sure that the different job functions and the different departments are understanding how they need to use their IT assets. And then we'll go over what the code of ethics is, and you can read about this in your manual. You can download a version from our website if you like. We won't spend too much time talking about it. We'll expect the individuals to go in and do that as well. We believe that management is a combination of things. As I've mentioned before, it's not strictly within an IT department, but that it encompasses all aspects of an organization. From financial, obviously these assets cost money, and there's capital being put into the purchase of these assets. So how do we make sure that we're getting the best bang for our buck? Well, we can do that through contract, making sure that we're negotiating the proper contract. Make sure we know what to negotiate and how the negotiations might go. And then inventory. Is there an opportunity to repurpose a device? With hardware, there's obviously refresh rates and refresh calculations that can help figure out when to decommission an asset for good. And we talk about that extensively within our hardware course. Mobile makes it a little bit different, and we'll go over how that works as well. We'll talk about managing the risk. not only from a global IT asset management perspective, but also from a mobile perspective. With these mobile devices, there is an increased productivity gain you can have, but there's also an increased risk that's associated with it solely due to the fact that these devices are much smaller. They're able to be picked up at the end of the day and taken to the employee's house or to their kid's soccer practice or to a restaurant or bar. We want to make sure that the individuals who are toting these assets around understand the risk involved with having them. We strive for secure communication. Part of mobility and part of the mobile assets that you might have within your organization are such things as Wi-Fi only tablets. How do we make sure that the employees who are using a Wi-Fi only tablet are using it appropriately, connecting to only secure networks, things along those lines? We want to make sure that the communication that our employees are doing on these mobile assets are secure and protecting the organizational information. And lastly, we're dedicated to the high standards and principles of ethical behavior. Like anything else, not only the individual practitioner, but the industry as a general, we need to make sure that we are acting with the utmost ethical guidelines. ITAM is a program. We need to think of ITAM as a program, not as a specific task. ITAM has no beginning and it has no end. Anytime there is IT within your organization, you have an IT program. And we need to be making sure that we communicate this to our executives and make them understand that this is something that's ongoing and that it's a core business competency, not a special task or a special project for someone, but something that needs to have a set of professionals that know what they're doing and that can really maximize the value for an organization. Then from a program management perspective, any program such as this has a set of policies, has a set of roles and procedures. And we're going to talk about what those policies and roles are. Each one of these key process areas that we were talking about earlier and we'll spend some time talking about in the upcoming slides, we'll make sure that they all have roles associated with them with specific job functions. And then we'll talk about how mobility affects these roles. So within a program you have all of these policies and procedures and roles and documentation and all that good stuff. And we'll spend some time talking about that as an ITAM program as a whole, but also from a mobility perspective and how mobility affects that. We'll also talk about that ITAM was developed to be the best practice guide. We focus on real-world solutions. This program, in this course, when you're done with it, will give you the framework to create a mobile asset management program. We're not going to talk about things that don't matter, and we're not going to talk about things that in a perfect world should happen. We're going to talk about all the ifs, ands, and buts about a program and what mobility brings to the table. And you as an IT asset management professional, understanding that your organization might be different than someone else's organization. So by giving you a bunch of topics and things to think about and consider, you will be at the end of this able to create and hopefully have a good IT asset management program as well as a good mobile asset management program. With this, we developed this architecture understanding that we need to have a process-centric structure. Policies are great, but what makes a policy go are the processes and the procedures that are revolving around it. And we'll talk about what these key process areas are, and that none of these key process areas stand alone. They are all interdependent. If you change one, it affects 2 or 3 others. So understanding that the program as a whole is a living, breathing entity and not a standalone concept will greatly help you create your ITAM program as well as your mobile asset management program. Here are the 12 key process areas, ranging anywhere from acquisition management. How do we make sure that we're getting the right mobile assets for our organization? Not every mobile asset is the same. Not every mobile asset is created the same. And we need to make sure that we understand the differences between the different types of mobile assets and making sure that they fall in line with the organizational goals. We'll talk about how to identify your assets. What do you need to track? What don't you need to track? How do you need to track it? We'll talk about compliance management. Compliance management is a very difficult one to think about because it's a moving target. If we're trying to have employees using mobile devices and using them from the road, and with a ever-growing range of mobile devices that are entering the market right now, making sure that we've got a universal set of policy and procedures to make sure our end users are staying compliant with whatever the organizational goals are is a moving target. It's something that needs to be reviewed and managed. Communication and education management. This is something we're going to be talking about throughout this whole course. Because due to the fact that mobility is ever-changing, we need to make sure that we're providing real-time communication to our employees when an operating system updates, for example, or a specific application that they're using on their mobile device versions. We need to make sure that we're communicating and educating to our end users this. Disposal management. What happens at the end of life? Do we give the device back to the vendor? And then you enter in the idea of BYOD, or bring your own device. This is the idea that employees can bring their own devices to the workplace and start accessing corporate data on their personal device. What happens when an employee decides they want to upgrade themselves and get a new device? What's the disposal process for an employee self-upgrading? Documentation management, that's another big one. What do we need to track and how do we need to track it? And more importantly, why we need to track it. Financial management. This is a key process area that talks about how do you sell this program to your CFO? What type of financial gains are you expected to gain from a mobile asset management program? This is taking into account the idea of ROI. And to create the ROI, we have to think about what the productivity gains are, as well as what the total cost of ownership for the devices. And we'll spend some time talking about what mobility brings to the table in that respect. Legislation management. For this course, we'll talk about legislation from the U.S. perspective. We'll talk about policy management and program management. How do you manage the program as a whole? Project management. What specific things within the program are you hoping to achieve, and how do you go about specific projects? And then lastly, vendor management. How do you manage the vendors, and who do you work with? Do you work with just one vendor or multiple vendors? So each key process area is interrelated and dependent. In the next slide, we'll see a flow diagram that shows just how complex the interrelation of all the key process areas are. And lastly, there is no start or end to the ITAM program. That's something I can't say enough. Unfortunately, the perception has been, and it's a changing perception, which is a good thing, that an IT asset management program is a core competency. It's not a specific task or job function. However, it's a philosophy and an ideology that businesses and organizations need to embrace and accept, and they are. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about this, but I would encourage everyone to go back and look at this graph later on, and just to look at how if you change one thing, such as acquisition, what all that affects and how it goes to multiple different other KPAs or key process areas. What are the priority KPAs for an ITAM program? There's 3 of them, and they're program management. Again, how are you going to manage your program from a global perspective? How are you going to communicate and educate your end users on what this program is and the management of said communication? One thing that I always like to say when I deliver these courses is that the attention span of our employees probably isn't what it was a few years ago or what it should be. We always advocate for doing communication education in bite-sized chunks, 3 to 5 minute videos talking about a specific policy or procedure. One of the things I always say, especially for mobile classes, if you have an end user base that has mobile assets, why not use mobile to train mobile? 3 to 5 minute YouTube clips or Vimeo clips or something along those lines, and have the end user look at these videos from their mobile assets. Use mobile to train mobile. And then lastly, from a policy management perspective, what are the individual policies within the greater program? And how often are we reviewing these policies? Mobile asset management and mobility is ever-changing. It's an ever-changing landscape. It's changing weekly, it seems, at points. So from a policy perspective, we need to make sure that we are adapting our policies to fit the current need. So what does the ITAM program management look like? Well, it's a centralized set of processes. We want to make sure that there's a clear and defined guideline for the end user. Not only how they need to use these assets when they're sitting at their desk in the workplace, but also how they're using these devices when they leave your workplace. And the reality is, with mobile assets, nightly, these assets are leaving your workplace. So we want to make sure that there is a program and a set of guidelines that they should follow when they're not within your business walls. So the purpose of this is to make sure that we've identified the objectives for what the mobile asset management program is supposed to give you, what the measured gains, and how to prioritize your IT, and making sure that your whole organization is aligned and working in the same direction, making sure that the efforts of the entire organization match the efforts of your IT asset management program. And there's an important secondary purpose, and that is to make sure that we are making sure that we're seeing ourselves as professionals and making sure that our organization is seeing us as professionals. So often with IT asset management, one day we report to potentially the CFO because of the fact that we're spending the company's money. Other times we report to the CIO because there's IT involved. We need to make sure that we're building a business case and advocating for ourselves. And by having a program management and having a clear mission statement for what the purpose of your ITAM program is, gives us the ability to show the value and our worth as we have an ever-changing leadership team. So ITAM program should have a mission statement that communicates what the program is, what it does, what it hopes to achieve, what the organizational benefits of it will be. We need to make sure we have strategies and objectives. Have a roadmap. Say we want to achieve X, and to do it we need to have the following tools, whether it be hardware or software or even labor, to make sure that we're achieving the objectives. Measurements. How do we know when we're successful? One of the things I hear in class a lot of the time is, I want to make sure that our asset management program is saving the company money. But unless we've got a set of measurements set up to provide this feedback, we don't know. So feedback to your leaders as to how the program's going. A secondary thing as far as measurement is concerned, we need to make sure that we are collecting the feedback from the end users to make sure that the policies and procedures that we've set forth are actually working. Because the only way the program is going to get better is by listening to the end users and taking some of their suggestions. What are some other influencers within the IT asset management program? What are some other things that can influence how we go about our business? Unfortunately, economic always plays a role. We may start a policy, we may start a program, and then for whatever reason the economic situation changes and we need to be able to adapt. Or a new innovation comes into the workplace. A new peripheral or a new type of mobile asset comes in and we think we can use this to leverage our program, so we need to change it. So there are going to be some influences that will change how we work. So the exercise for this one, I need everyone to go ahead and download the exercise guide from the course materials tab, and then please fill it out. This is going to give you an idea of how the communication in your organization works. We're going to spend some time in the upcoming slides and modules talking about communication, but I first want everyone to go in and think about their own organization. How does communication work? Who are the stakeholders? And are there any gateways to get to the stakeholders? So go ahead and download that and we'll talk about those slides when we come back. Thanks for watching and we'll see you in the next module.